"Get out of here! I didn't invite you!" Chloe's scream filled my living room. I was standing, my hand on the back of the chair, in front of the table I had prepared since 5 in the morning. It was her birthday. The candles were lit, the dishes were steaming. Everything smelled like the green chili enchiladas she loved so much. But when I tried to sit down, she looked at me as if I were a stranger in my own house. "What are you doing?" she asked me with that cold voice I already knew. "Nobody called you. This is my party." I looked at my son, Dan. He was sitting next to her, his eyes glued to his plate. He said nothing. The other guests fell silent, a dense silence that spread throughout the room. I was still standing, wearing my apron, with 14 hours of work weighing down my shoulders. It wasn't the first time Chloe had pushed me aside, but this time she had done it in front of everyone, at the table I prepared, in the house that was mine. I let go of the chair back. I took a step back. Chloe spoke again, this time in a sweet tone, addressing her guests. "Please, forgive the interruption. You know how mothers-in-law are, always wanting to be in the middle of everything." There were laughs, and I was still there, feeling the floor open up beneath my feet. I walked toward the door. Each step cost me more than the last. I reached the entryway. I put my hand on the doorknob. The metal was cold, and then I stopped. Something inside me ignited. It wasn't rage, it was something deeper, something that had been dormant for far too long. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and when I opened them, I was no longer the same woman who was about to walk out of her own home with her head down. But to understand what I did in that moment, I need to tell you how I got here. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I am 64 years old, and this is my house. I was born in a small town, a couple of hours from the city. We were 7 siblings. I was the eldest. By 15, I already knew how to cook, wash, iron, and take care of children. My mother used to say I was born with golden hands. At 18, I met Robert. He was a construction worker. Strong, quiet, hardworking. We got married 3 months later. A year later, Dan was born, my only son. My dark-eyed boy who clung to my finger as if it were the only thing that existed in the world. Robert worked from sunup to sundown. He built houses. He raised walls. We were poor, but we were happy. When Dan was 6 years old, Robert died. It was an accident on the job site, scaffolding that collapsed. And in a matter of hours, the man I had dreamed of growing old with was gone. I was left alone, with a 6-year-old child. No money, no job. I started doing laundry for other people, then ironing, then cooking for parties. I worked 18 hours a day, my hands filled with calluses. But Dan never went hungry. He never missed school. Over time, I saved, dollar after dollar. I kept every coin in a coffee can, and when Dan turned 10, I bought this house. It wasn't big, but it was mine. I painted it myself. I fixed the leaks. I planted flowers in the yard. Every corner of this house holds my sweat, my effort, my entire life. Dan grew up here. We celebrated his birthdays, his graduations. I raised him alone. I raised him well, or so I thought. When Dan turned 35, he met Chloe. She was 32. Long hair, an easy laugh. The first time I saw her, I thought she was pretty, polite, smart. Dan was in love, and I was happy. I was happy because my son had found someone, because he wouldn't be alone anymore. They got married 6 months later. It was a simple wedding in the backyard of this house. I cooked for everyone. Chloe hugged me that day and said, "Thank you, Eleanor. You're the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for." And I believed her. At first, everything seemed perfect. Chloe would visit me on Sundays. She brought flowers. She helped me with the food. She asked me how my week had been. Dan seemed happy, happier than I had seen him in years. I thought I would finally have the family I had always dreamed of. Not just my son, but a daughter, too. Someone to talk to. Someone to keep me company when Dan wasn't around. How wrong I was. 6 months after the wedding, Dan came to see me. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was watering the plants in the garden. "Mom," he said, "I need to talk to you." I dried my hands on my apron and looked at him. He had that expression he used to get as a kid, when he had done something wrong. "What's wrong, honey?" "Chloe and I are looking for an apartment," he said. "But the prices are really high, and with my salary, we can barely cover the basics." I nodded. I knew life was hard. Everything was more expensive. Rent, food, utilities. "And?" I asked. "We were thinking maybe we could stay here with you, just for a little while, until we can save up for a deposit on our own place." I stayed quiet, looking at my son, the boy I had raised alone, the man who was now asking me for help. How could I say no? "Of course," I said. "This is your house, Dan. It always will be." Chloe arrived 2 days later with 3 suitcases. Dan brought 4 boxes. They told me it would only be for 3 months. 6 at the most. I gave them my bedroom, the biggest one, the one with the private bathroom. I moved into the small room, the one I used to use for storage. "It's temporary," I told myself as I arranged my things in the new space. "It's just a few months." But the months passed, and they were still there. At first, Chloe was kind. She helped with the dishes. She asked if I needed anything from the store. She even cooked every once in a while. But little by little, things started to change. First, it was small, subtle comments. "Eleanor, do you always leave the pots there? They're just kind of in the way. Don't you think it would be better if we put the table on the other side? It would look more modern." "Oh, that tablecloth is so old, isn't it? I have a new one I brought. We could use that." I nodded. I moved the pots. I changed the table's position. I put away my tablecloth. Then came the bigger changes. One day I came home from grocery shopping and found that Chloe had rearranged all the furniture in the living room. The wooden rocking chair that Robert had given me when Dan was born was gone. "Where's my rocking chair?" I asked. "Oh, that old thing," Chloe said without looking up from her phone. "I put it in the garage. It didn't match anything. I bought a new sofa. Much nicer. You'll see." I felt a knot in my throat, but I said nothing. Robert's rocking chair ended up covered in dust in the garage. Next was the kitchen. Chloe said it needed an update. That the tiles were ugly. That the sink was too scratched. Dan hired a contractor. They changed everything. They put in gray subway tiles, a stainless steel sink, white cabinets. I didn't recognize my own kitchen. "It looks amazing, right?" Chloe said to me. "Now it actually makes you want to cook in here." But she never cooked. I was still the one who made breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The one who washed the dishes, the one who cleaned. The months turned into a year, and they still weren't looking for an apartment. One day I dared to ask, "Dan, have you seen any places?" My son looked at me, uncomfortable. "Mom, it's tough out there. Prices keep going up. Besides, Chloe says we're fine here. Why waste money on rent when we can save?" Save. That was the word they used. But I didn't see them saving anything. Chloe bought new clothes every week. Dan traded in his car. They went out to dinner on weekends. Meanwhile, I kept working. I washed their clothes. I cooked for them. I cleaned up their messes. And little by little, I became invisible in my own house. They no longer asked me if I wanted to watch a certain show on television. They just put it on. They no longer told me if they were going to be late. They just didn't show up. They no longer included me in their plans. I was the one who opened the door when they arrived. The one who heated up their food. The one who stayed up waiting. But nobody saw me. One day, Chloe invited her friends over. They were 4 women I didn't know. They arrived laughing, with bottles of wine, with loud music. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when one of them walked in. "Are you Dan's mom?" she asked me. "Yes," I replied. "Oh, that's great that Chloe has you here to help her with the house," she said. "She's so lucky." I stayed quiet, watching her get water from the refrigerator and go back into the living room. Me? Helping her? This was my house. My house. But nobody remembered that anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the laughter coming from the living room. From my living room. Laughter from women I didn't know, drinking wine from glasses I had washed that morning, sitting on furniture I hadn't chosen. I got up at 3 in the morning. I went to the kitchen. The empty bottles were on the table. Dirty plates were piled in the sink. Bread crumbs all over the floor. Wine stains on the new tablecloth Chloe had bought. I started cleaning. In silence. In the dark. Like always. When I finished, it was already 5. I made myself a coffee and sat by the window. Outside, the sun was starting to rise. The first light of day filtered through the curtains Chloe had changed last month. Gray curtains that made everything look darker. I drank my coffee slowly, looking at the garden I had planted myself. The roses that grew by the fence. The lemon tree I had planted when Dan was little. Those trees knew me. Those flowers knew who had cared for them all these years. But inside the house, I was a stranger. Chloe woke up around noon. She came into the kitchen in her pajamas, her hair a mess, yawning. "Did you make coffee?" she asked me. "Yes. It's in the pot." She poured herself a cup, sat at the table, checked her phone. "Did you clean up everything from last night?" she asked without looking up. "Yes." "Great. My friends left a horrible mess." She took a sip of coffee. "Hey, Eleanor, I'm going out today with some colleagues from work. We're going shopping. I'll be back tonight. Leave some dinner for Dan, okay? Don't let him go hungry." She didn't ask if I had plans. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She just gave me orders. In my own house. "Okay," I said. Chloe finished her coffee, got up, and left. She didn't even put the cup in the sink. She left it there, on the table, with the coffee ring staining the wood. I washed the cup. Like always, Dan got home from work at 7. He looked tired. He took off his shoes at the entrance and collapsed on the sofa. "What's for dinner, Mom?" he asked. "Chicken mole. Your favorite." "Perfect. I'm starving." I served them. He ate 2 plates. He didn't ask about Chloe. He didn't ask how my day had been. He just ate, watched television, and went to sleep. I stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes, cleaning the stove, putting away the leftovers. When I finished, it was almost 10 o'clock at night. I went to my room. The small room, the one that used to be a storage closet. The walls still had marks from where the shelves used to be. The window was tiny. Hardly any light came in. I sat on the bed. I looked around. All my things were crammed into that space. My clothes in a tiny closet. My photos in a box because there was nowhere to hang them. My rocking chair in the garage. My kitchen renovated without asking me. My living room full of furniture I hadn't chosen. What was left of my house for me? I lay down. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't sleep. The months kept passing. And with every month, I became smaller. Chloe started inviting more people over. Her friends, her co-workers, distant cousins. People I didn't know walked in and out of my house like it was a hotel. One Saturday, her brother arrived with his wife and their 2 kids. Little kids who ran all over the house, screaming, throwing things. They broke a vase that had belonged to my mother. One of those antique, hand-painted ceramic vases. "They're just kids," Chloe told me when I showed her the pieces. "They didn't do it on purpose. Don't be so dramatic." I gathered the pieces. I put them in a bag. I threw them in the trash. And I said nothing more. Every time I complained, Dan told me the same thing. "Mom, don't exaggerate. Chloe is just trying to make the house look better. Mom, understand. She lives here too. She has a right to change things. Mom, don't be so sensitive. It's just furniture. Just furniture. Just walls. Just things." But to me, they weren't just things. They were my life. They were 30 years of memories. It was the home I had built with my own hands, when everyone told me I wouldn't be able to do it alone. And now, they were taking it away from me. Piece by piece. One afternoon, Chloe was talking on the phone with someone. I was in the kitchen washing vegetables. She was in the living room, but she was talking so loud I could hear every word. "Yeah, it's a pain," she was saying. "But it's free. We don't pay rent, we don't pay utilities, we don't pay for anything. I just have to put up with the old woman." She laughed. I know. But Dan says we still don't have enough saved up, so I have to act like everything is fine." The knife fell from my hands. It made a sharp noise against the sink. Chloe didn't notice. She kept talking. She kept laughing. I stood there, hands wet, watching the water run. Is that how she saw me? As something to be put up with? As the price she had to pay for not paying rent? That night, when Dan got home, I tried to talk to him. Son, I need to tell you something. What's wrong, Mom? I think it's time for you to find your own place. It's been over a year. You said it would only be a few months. Dan frowned. Mom, we've talked about this. It's hard out there. But I stopped. I didn't know how to say it without sounding selfish, without sounding like the bitter mother-in-law everyone describes. It's just that this is my house, Dan, and I feel like I don't have any space left. You don't have space. Dan raised his voice. Mom, this house is huge. You have your room. What more do you want? My room was the storage closet, Dan, but it's a room. And besides, we help with the expenses. I pay the water, the electricity, the gas. Without us, how would you pay for all that? I fell silent. He was right. Since they had arrived, I no longer paid the utilities. Dan did. And with my pension, I barely had enough for my personal expenses. Forget it, I said. It's nothing. Mom, don't be like that. I understand it's complicated to live together sometimes. But we're family. And family supports each other. Yes, family supports each other. But who was supporting me? The weeks kept passing. And I kept getting smaller, more invisible. I no longer cooked what I wanted. I cooked what Chloe asked for. I no longer watched my shows on television. I watched what they put on. I no longer invited my friends over. Because Chloe always had people at the house, and there was no room for mine. Sharon, my neighbor, came to visit me from time to time. She was a woman my age, a widow too, who lived alone in the house next door. We had been friends for years. One day she came over for coffee. She sat in the kitchen with me. She looked around. You changed the kitchen? She asked. Chloe changed it. Ah. Sharon took a sip of coffee. And what do you think? I shrugged. It's fine. More modern. Sharon looked at me with those eyes that knew me too well. Eleanor, are you okay? Yes. Why? I don't know. You seem different. Quieter. Sadder. I'm just tired, that's all. Tired of what? You don't work like you used to. It was true. Since Dan and Chloe arrived, I no longer did laundry for others. I no longer cooked for events. They had told me it wasn't necessary anymore, that they supported me, that I could finally rest. But it wasn't rest I felt. It was uselessness. Sharon, have you ever felt like you don't matter anymore? I asked her suddenly. She put her cup down on the table. All the time, she said, ever since I was widowed, ever since my kids left. Sometimes I feel like I'm just here, taking up space, waiting for something to happen. Or for nothing to happen, I nodded. I knew exactly what she meant. But Eleanor, Sharon continued, it's one thing to feel lonely when you're alone. It's another thing entirely to feel lonely when there are people around you. That's worse. Because it means you're surrounded by people who don't see you. Her words stabbed me in the chest. I was surrounded by people who didn't see me. My son lived in my house, but he didn't see me. My daughter-in-law slept under my roof, but she didn't see me. I was there, cooking, cleaning, existing, but nobody saw me. So what do? I asked Sharon. She sighed. I don't know, my friend. I wish I did. That night, Chloe announced she was going to host a dinner. A big dinner. For her birthday. I'm going to invite my whole family, she said excitedly. My parents, my siblings, my cousins, and my friends from work too. It's going to be an incredible party. How many people? I asked. Like 20 people, maybe 25. 25 people. In my house. And who is going to cook? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Oh, Eleanor, you cook deliciously. Would you do me the favor? I know it's a lot of work, but nobody makes green chili enchiladas like you. She smiled at me, that sweet smile she used when she wanted something. Please. It's my birthday. I agreed. Of course I agreed. Because that's what I did. Say yes. With pleasure. Make everyone happy, even if I was left exhausted. Chloe gave me a list. A long list of everything she wanted for her birthday. Green chili enchiladas, Spanish rice, charro beans, fresh guacamole, pico de gallo, 3 different types of salsa, homemade tortillas, and a tres leches cake that, according to her, I made better than any bakery. Do you have money for all this? I asked her. Oh, Eleanor, you know Dan and I are saving. Could you pay for the food? We'll pay you back later. We'll pay you back later. Those 4 words that never came true. I took money out of my pension. $200. It was almost all I had left for the month. But it was my daughter-in-law's birthday, and I wanted it to be special. I still had that foolish hope that if I was kind, if I gave more, if I tried harder, she would start to see me, to respect me, to like me a little. I went to the market alone. I bought everything on the list. The reddest tomatoes, the freshest chiles, the most tender chicken, the perfect avocados. I carried the bags back home. My arms hurt. My back hurt. But it didn't matter. I got home and started preparing everything. It was 3 in the afternoon the day before the party. Chloe was in the living room, watching television, with freshly painted nails. Do you need help? She asked without looking up from the screen. No, don't worry. I can manage. Great. I just got my nails done and I don't want to ruin them. I spent the whole afternoon cooking. All night. Chloe went to bed at 11. Dan didn't even come home for dinner. He was working late, he told me in a text. I stayed there, chopping onions, boiling chicken, grinding chiles. My eyes burned. My hands smelled like garlic and cilantro. My feet ached from standing so long. At 2 in the morning, I finished the enchiladas. I put them in the refrigerator. I cleaned the kitchen. And then I started on the cake. The tres leches cake was complicated. You had to bake the sponge cake, prepare the milk mixture, let it soak well, make the meringue. It was a long process, but I had done it 1,000 times, for Dan's birthday, when he was little, for family parties, for every special occasion. I put the sponge cake in the oven. I sat at the kitchen table. I waited. The clock said 3 in the morning. The house was silent. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator and the tick-tock of the wall clock. That clock I had bought at the market when I moved into this house. That clock that had watched Dan grow up, that had marked every moment of my life here. I poured myself a glass of water. I looked around. The kitchen no longer looked like mine. The gray tiles, the white cabinets, so cold, so impersonal. This kitchen used to be yellow, a soft yellow, like the morning Sunday. Robert had painted it when we moved in. He said he wanted me to cook in a cheerful place, a place full of light. Now everything was gray. The oven timer went off. I took out the sponge cake. I let it cool. I prepared the milk mixture. I poured it all over the cake. I put it in the refrigerator. It was 4:30 in the morning. I went up to my room. I lay down with my clothes on. I closed my eyes. But I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, thinking about everything I still had to do. The rice, the beans, the tortillas, the guacamole. At 5, I got up. I changed my clothes. I went back to the kitchen. I started the rice. Then the beans. I put on some quiet music on the radio. Old songs I used to listen to with Robert. Songs that reminded me of simpler times. At 8 in the morning, Dan came down for breakfast. Good morning, Mom. You've been up for a long time. A little while. He poured himself coffee, sat at the table, looked at everything I had prepared. This looks delicious. Chloe is going to be so happy. I hope so. Mom, thanks for doing all this. I know it's a lot of work. I nodded. I waited. I waited for him to say something else, to ask me how I felt, to notice the dark circles under my eyes, to see that I had been cooking for almost 15 hours straight. But he just finished his coffee, got up, and went to take a shower. Chloe came down around noon. She was all dressed up, hair down, wearing makeup. Is everything ready? She asked. The guacamole and tortillas are still left. But the rest is done. Perfect. The guests arrive at 6. I want everything on the table at 6:30. Okay. Oh, and Eleanor, one more thing. She got closer and lowered her voice, even though no one else was in the kitchen. When my parents get here, could you not be wandering around the living room? It's just that I like to greet my guests in peace, without interruptions. I just stared at her, without interruptions, as if I were an interruption in my own house. Where do you want me to be? I asked. I don't know. In your room. Or here in the kitchen. But only come out when I call you to serve the food, okay? I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Chloe smiled. Thanks, Eleanor. I knew you'd understand. She went to the living room. I heard her talking on the phone, laughing, excited about her party. I stayed in the kitchen, making guacamole, mashing avocados, chopping cilantro, squeezing limes. At 5 in the afternoon, I started on the tortillas. I made them by hand, one by one, the dough between my fingers, the hot griddle, the smell of corn filling the kitchen. I made 40 tortillas. My hands were tired. My fingers ached, but I kept going, because everything had to be perfect. At 6 o'clock, the guests started to arrive. I heard the voices from the kitchen, laughter, greetings, the sound of the door opening and closing. Chloe greeted everyone. I could hear her voice, happy, grateful. So glad you came. Come in, come in. This is my house. Welcome, my house. Those 2 words pierced my chest like needles. I stayed in the kitchen, finishing the last details, putting everything on platters, garnishing the dishes. At 6:30, Chloe peeked her head through the door. Everything's ready, right? Yes, perfect. Start bringing out the food. I started carrying the platters to the table, one by one. The enchiladas, the rice, the beans, the salsas, the tortillas. Every time I entered the dining room, the guests looked at me as if I were part of the catering staff. No one said hello. No one asked me my name. Chloe was sitting at the head of the table, in my spot, in the spot where I always Saturday, the spot from which I had watched Dan grow up, from where I had shared thousands of meals with Robert, but now it was hers. I finished putting all the food on the table. I went back to the kitchen. I stood there, looking through the pass-through window into the dining room, watching them eat, watching them laugh, watching them enjoy the food I had prepared with my own hands. Dan was sitting next to Chloe. He looked happy, happier than I had seen him in months. Chloe raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said. Everyone quieted down. Thank you for coming to celebrate with me. Thank you for sharing this moment in my house, with my family. My house. My family. I no longer existed. The guests clapped. They clinked their glasses. They kept eating. I stayed in the kitchen, sitting on a small stool by the sink, staring at the floor. The tears wanted to come out, but I held them back. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Half an hour passed. The plates were almost empty. Chloe came back to the kitchen. You can bring out the cake now, she said. I got the cake from the refrigerator. It was beautiful, perfect, with the white, fluffy meringue. Chloe had bought candles with the number 32. I put them on the cake. I lit them. I carried the cake to the dining room. Everyone started to sing. The happy birthday song. The song I sang to Dan every birthday when he was little. But now they were singing it for her. I put the cake in front of Chloe. She smiled, closed her eyes, made a wish. She blew out the candles. Everyone clapped. Cut it, someone shouted. Chloe took the knife. She cut the first piece. She tried it. It's delicious, she said. Eleanor, you did an incredible job. Everyone turned to look at me, as if they were just noticing I was there. Thank you, I said softly. Serve everyone, will you? Chloe told me. I started cutting the cake, serving the plates, passing them out one by one. No one thanked me. They just took their plates and kept talking. When I finished, I counted the remaining pieces. There were 6 left, one for each person at the table. Just enough. I had made the perfect cake. I had calculated the portions exactly, but I hadn't set aside a slice for myself. I went back to the kitchen. I sat down. I listened to the laughter, the conversations, the sound of forks against plates. I felt empty as the plates they were filling. 2 hours passed. The guests were still there, eating. drinking, laughing. I washed all the dirty dishes that were piling up. I cleaned the splatters on the stove. I put away the leftover food. At 10 o'clock at night, I decided it was enough. I was tired, exhausted. I wanted to go to my room, lie down, disappear. But before I left, I wanted to sit, just for a moment, at my own table, in my own house. I left the kitchen. I walked to the dining room. Everyone was still there. There was one empty chair, just one. At the end of the table, I approached it. I put my hand on the back. I was going to sit down, just for a moment, just to feel like I still belonged somewhere. And then I heard her voice. "Get out of here. I didn't invite you." Chloe's scream filled the dining room. Everyone went silent. All eyes were fixed on me. I froze, my hand still on the back of the chair, my heart pounding in my chest. Chloe was looking at me with fury, with contempt, like I was trash. "What are you doing?" she asked me in a cold voice. "This is my party. I decide who comes and who doesn't, and you are not invited." I felt the floor move beneath my feet. The voices around me became a distant buzz. I could see the guests' mouths moving, but I heard nothing, only the sound of my own heart thumping in my ears. I looked at Dan. He was sitting there, his fork halfway between his plate and his mouth, completely frozen. His eyes met mine for a second, just 1 second, and then he looked down. He looked down as if he couldn't hold my gaze, as if seeing me hurt him. Or, even worse, as if seeing me embarrassed him. I waited. I waited for him to say something, to stand up, to tell his wife that this was my house, that I had cooked every dish they were eating, that I had spent $200 of my pension, that I had been working for 18 hours to make this party perfect. But he said nothing. Chloe kept staring at me with those cold eyes, waiting, enjoying the moment, savoring my humiliation as if it were part of the dessert. One of her friends, a woman with short hair who had arrived with a bottle of wine, cleared her throat uncomfortably. She looked down at her plate. Another guest, an older man who must have been Chloe's father, picked up his glass and drank slowly, avoiding my eyes. No one said anything. No one defended me. They didn't even look at me with compassion, just with discomfort, as if I were the one doing something wrong, as if I were the one who had ruined the party. I let go of the chair back. My fingers were shaking. My whole body was shaking. But not from fear, not from sadness. Something deeper was waking up inside me. Something that had been dormant for far too long. I took a step back. Then another. The sound of my shoes on the hardwood floor echoed in the absolute silence that had fallen over the dining room. Chloe smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile. But I saw it. I saw it perfectly. It was the smile of someone who has just won, of someone who knows they have all the power. She turned to her guests, and her expression changed completely. Now it was sweet, understanding, almost pitying. "Please, forgive this awkward moment," she said in a soft voice. "You know how older people can get. Sometimes they get confused. They lose track of things a bit. My mother-in-law is a wonderful woman, really, but lately she's been a little disoriented. The poor thing. There are days when it seems like she doesn't quite understand where she is or what's happening around her." The words fell on me like stones, each one heavier than the last. Disoriented, confused. The poor thing. She was telling everyone that I was losing my mind, that I was a senile old woman who didn't understand things. And the worst part is that some of them nodded. They nodded with that expression of false sympathy that people put on when they talk about someone who is no longer all there. "It must be hard for you," said one of the guests, a young woman with big earrings. "Taking care of someone who's losing their memory. What a heavy burden." "It's complicated," Chloe replied with a dramatic sigh. "But she's family. You do what you have to do. Even if it's exhausting sometimes. There are days I have to repeat things to her 5 or 6 times. And other times she gets stubborn, insists on things that aren't true. But well, it's part of the process. They say it's normal at this age." I stood there, listening to them talk about me as if I weren't present, as if I were a piece of furniture, an object with no feelings, no dignity. Dan still wasn't looking at me. His eyes were still glued to his plate, pushing the crumbs of cake from one side to the other with his fork. I walked to the kitchen. Each step took an enormous effort. My legs felt heavy, as if I were walking through water, as if my whole body were fighting against an invisible current that wanted to drag me down. I reached the kitchen. I leaned against the sink. My hands were shaking so much I had to grip the edge to keep from falling. I closed my eyes. I breathed deep. The air came in ragged, painful gasps. Behind me, in the dining room, the conversations had resumed. They had already forgotten about me. They had already moved on to another topic. I heard laughter. I heard the clinking of glasses. Everything had returned to normal, as if nothing had happened, as if I didn't matter. I turned on the faucet. I let the water run over my hands. It was cold, so cold it hurt. But I liked that pain. It made me feel like I was still alive, like I could still feel something. I looked out the window. It was dark outside. The lights in Sharon's house were on. I could see her silhouette moving behind the curtains. She was probably getting ready for bed. Alone in her house, with no one to humiliate her, with no one to make her feel worthless. For the first time in a long time, I envied her loneliness. I turned off the faucet. I dried my hands on my apron, the same apron I had worn all night. It was stained with sauce, with flour, with everything I had cooked for this party that wasn't even mine. I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. I knew those steps. I had heard them all my life. "Mom," Dan said in a low voice. I didn't answer. I kept looking out the window, looking at the lights of Sharon's house, wishing I were anywhere but here. "Mom, don't be like this," he continued. His voice sounded tired, annoyed, as if I were the one causing problems. "Chloe didn't mean to offend you. It's just, this is her party, her birthday. She has the right to decide who sits at the table." I turned around slowly. I looked at him, at my son, the child I had carried in my arms, the child I had raised alone after his father died, the child I had worked 18 hours a day for, the child I had given up everything for. "Her party?" I asked. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "In my house," Dan sighed. He ran his hand through his hair, that gesture he made when he was frustrated. "Mom, we've talked about this. This house belongs to everyone now. We live here. We pay the utilities. You can't keep acting like it's only yours. Things have changed. You have to accept it. You have to adapt to the new family dynamic. Chloe and I are a marriage. We are a unit. And when she makes a decision about the house, about gatherings, about anything, I support her. That's how relationships work. That's how marriage works." Every word was a blow. But they didn't hurt me like they used to. Something inside me had hardened. Something had broken in a way that could no longer be fixed. "I cooked everything," I said. "I spent $200 of my pension. I stayed up all night. I worked 18 hours to make this party perfect. And I couldn't even sit at the table. I couldn't even eat a piece of the cake I made. And you're telling me I have to accept it? That I have to adapt?" Dan avoided my gaze. "Nobody asked you to spend so much. Nobody asked you to cook all that. You decided to do it. And now you can't use that as an excuse to make Chloe feel bad on her own birthday. She has guests. She has the right to enjoy her day without you making her feel guilty for not including you in everything." I just stared at him, searching his eyes for something of the boy he had been, the boy who hugged me when he had nightmares, the boy who told me I was the best mom in the world, the boy who promised he would always take care of me. But that boy wasn't there anymore. "Go," I told him. "Go back to your party." "Mom, don't be like this. Don't be so dramatic. This isn't as big a deal as you're making it. Tomorrow this will all be forgotten. You'll see. You just need to calm down a bit. Maybe you should go to your room. Rest. You've worked a lot today. You're tired. And when you're tired, everything seems worse than it really is." I didn't say anything else. I just looked at him until he turned and left the kitchen. I was left alone, surrounded by the mess of the party. The dirty dishes piled in the sink, the empty pots on the stove, the crumbs on the floor, the stains on the tablecloth. All the work of 18 hours reduced to garbage that I would have to clean up tomorrow. I looked at the clock. It was 10:30 at night. The laughter from the dining room continued. The party went on. And I was here, in my own kitchen, feeling like a stranger. I took my favorite mug from the shelf. The blue mug, with white flowers that Robert had given me on our first anniversary. It was the only thing Chloe hadn't thrown out, probably because she had never seen it. I hid it in the back of the cabinet. I poured myself some water. I sat on the stool by the window, and for the first time all night, I cried. I cried in silence. No sobs, no noise. Just tears that fell onto my lap and got lost in the fabric of my apron. The days after the party were strange. Everyone acted as if nothing had happened. As if that night had never existed. Chloe spoke to me normally. She asked me to cook, to wash, to clean. Dan came home from work and gave me a kiss on the forehead, just like always. No one mentioned what had happened. No one apologized. And I didn't say anything either. I continued with my routine. I got up early. I made breakfast. I cleaned the house. I made lunch. I did the laundry, like always. But something had changed inside me. Something had broken that night, and I didn't know if it could ever be put back together. A week after the party, Chloe came home with news. "Eleanor, I have to tell you something," she told me one afternoon while I was folding laundry in the living room. "My parents are coming to stay with us for a few days. My mom needs a medical treatment in the city, and they'll be here for about 2 weeks. I'm going to give them your room. It has the perfect amount of space, and it's close to the bathroom. You can sleep on the sofa. Or if you prefer, you can put a mattress in the laundry room, whatever is more comfortable for you." I stood there with a towel in my hands, staring at her, processing what she had just said. My room, the only space I had left in this house. The only place where I could close the door and be alone. And now they were taking it from me. "When do they arrive?" I asked. "The day after tomorrow. So I need you to get all your things out today or tomorrow. I'm going to clean the room well and change the sheets. I want it to be perfect for them. My mom is very particular about those things. You know how moms are. They always want everything to be spotless." Yes, I knew how moms are, because I was one, but no one seemed to remember that. That afternoon I went up to my room. I looked around. The small bed where I had slept for the last year, the narrow closet that barely fit my clothes, the small window that looked out onto the backyard. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I started taking my things out. The clothes, the shoes, the few photos I had in a box, the rosary that had belonged to my mother, the old books I liked to read at night. I piled everything in the laundry room, an even smaller space that smelled like detergent and dampness. There, between the washing machine and the brooms, I put an old mattress I found in the garage. This was going to be my new room. Chloe's parents arrived 2 days later. They were older people, like me. Mr. Arthur was 70 years old. Mrs. Helen was 68. They arrived with 4 large suitcases and many bags. Chloe received them with hugs and kisses. She settled them into my old room. She made them tea. She put on music. She treated them like royalty. I greeted them from the kitchen. I introduced myself. They barely looked at me. A nod of the head, a forced smile, and nothing more. That night, Chloe cooked. For the first time in months, she cooked. She made roasted chicken with potatoes. Nothing special, but she did it for her parents. She set the table nicely. She took out the good plates. She lit candles. I was in the kitchen washing some dishes when I heard them start to eat dinner. I waited for them to call me. I waited for them to say something, but no one did. I peeked into the dining room. The 4 of them were sitting there, Dan, Chloe, and her parents, eating, talking, laughing. There was no place for me at the table. I went back to the kitchen. I got a plate. I served myself what was left in the pot. I sat on the stool by the window. I ate alone, in silence, looking at the darkness outside. The following days were the same. I cooked breakfast. I cleaned. I washed everyone's clothes, including Chloe's parents. But at mealtime, they sat together, the 4 of them, like a family. And I ate later, alone, with the leftovers. One morning, Mrs. Helen came into the kitchen while I was preparing lunch. "Excuse me," she said. "Could you wash this blouse by hand? It's delicate. I don't want it to get ruined in the washer. And when you iron it, please be careful. It's silk. It needs to be ironed on low heat." I just stared at her. She was giving me orders. In my house. As if I were the maid. "Of course," I said. "Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. Could you make vegetable soup for lunch? Arthur really likes soup, but not with too much salt. He has high blood pressure. You have to watch those things when you cook for older people. We can't just eat anything at our age." I nodded. She left the kitchen. I stood there, with the silk blouse in my hands. Older people. As if she and I weren't almost the same age. As if I didn't know what it's like to take care of one's health. As if I were different. Inferior. That afternoon, while I was washing her blouse by hand, I heard voices in the living room. I got a little closer. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but the voices were loud. It was Mr. Arthur talking to Dan. "Your mom seems like a hard-working woman," he was saying. "You can tell she knows how to run a house. Chloe told us she takes care of everything. It must be a relief for you to have that help. Hiring someone full-time to cook and clean would be so expensive. You must be saving a ton of money this way." There was a silence. I waited for Dan to say something. To clarify. To explain that I wasn't the help. That I was his mother. That this was my house. But the only thing I heard was his uncomfortable laugh. "Yeah, she's really useful to have around," Dan said. Useful. That word just hung in the air. Useful. I moved away from the living room. I went back to the kitchen. I finished washing the blouse. I hung it up to dry. I started chopping the vegetables for the soup. My hands were shaking. The knife was slipping. I had to stop, breathe, tell myself that nothing was wrong, that everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. Chloe's parents stayed for the full 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, I ceased to exist as a person. I became a ghost. A shadow that cooked, cleaned, and washed but had no voice, had no opinion, had no place at the table. I slept in the laundry room, on that old mattress on the concrete floor. The smell of detergent gave me a headache. The noise from the pipes wouldn't let me sleep. I would wake up at 5 in the morning because someone flushed the toilet, and the water rushed through the pipes right next to my head. But I didn't complain. Because if I complained, if I said anything, they would surely tell me I was being dramatic, that I was exaggerating, that I was playing the victim. One night, I couldn't sleep. It was 2 in the morning. The mattress was uncomfortable. The room was cold. I got up. I went to the kitchen. I made myself some tea. I sat by the window, looking at Sharon's house. Her lights were off. She was sleeping, peacefully in her bed. In her house. With no one to make her feel invisible. I drank my tea slowly. The hot liquid comforted me. It was the only thing that made me feel something close to peace. I heard footsteps. I turned around. It was Dan. He was in his pajamas, looking sleepy. "What are you doing up?" he asked. I couldn't sleep. He poured himself a glass of water. He sat down across from me. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said. His tone was serious. "Chloe and I have been thinking. This living all together, it's getting complicated. There are too many people in the house, too much going on. And you look tired, stressed. Maybe it would be better if you found a quieter place. A small apartment. Just for you, where you can be at peace." I looked at him, not understanding. "Are you asking me to leave my house?" I asked. "It's not that, Mom. Don't look at it that way. We just think you might be better off in your own place. Where you don't have to be taking care of us. Where you can rest. You've worked hard your whole life. You deserve some peace. We would help you with the rent. We'd give you something every month. We're not going to abandon you. But here, with so many people, with so many responsibilities, you're getting worn out." I left my cup on the table. My hands were shaking so much I was afraid I'd drop it. "This is my house, Dan," I said. "I bought it. I paid for it. I built it up when no one helped me. After your father died, when everyone said I wouldn't make it alone. This house is mine. I know, Mom, and nobody is saying otherwise. But things have changed. There are more of us now, and the house feels small. Chloe needs space. Her parents visit often. We're going to have visitors more frequently. And you can't keep sleeping in the laundry room. That's not fair to you. That's why we think the best thing would be for you to have your own place. A place where you can be happy. Where you don't have to be doing things for everyone else all the time. I fell silent, looking at him, searching for any sign that he was joking, that this was a nightmare and I was going to wake up. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. My son was asking me to leave my own home. I'm not leaving, I said finally. This is my house, and I'm staying. Tensai. Mom, don't be stubborn. Think about it. Really think about it. What future do you have here? Are you going to keep cooking and cleaning for everyone? Are you going to keep sleeping in a laundry room? Are you going to keep being invisible? Because that's what you are now. Invisible. And it's nobody's fault. It's just that the dynamics changed. Life changed. And you have to adapt, or you're going to keep suffering. I stood up. I couldn't listen anymore. I'm going to bed, I said. Mom, please, just think about it. I didn't answer. I walked to the laundry room. I closed the door. I lay down on the old mattress. And I cried. The next few days were the darkest of my life. I woke up every morning not knowing why. I cooked without enthusiasm. I cleaned on autopilot. I did everything like a robot. Without thinking. Without feeling. Dan and Chloe started to pressure me more. They left brochures for rental apartments on the kitchen table. They talked loudly about how nice it would be for me to have my own space. How quiet. How comfortable. As if they were doing me a favor. One afternoon, I was washing dishes when I heard the door. It was Sharon. I hadn't seen her in weeks. Chloe had made it clear that visitors had to call first. That people couldn't just show up like that. But Sharon knocked on the door and walked in just like she always had. Eleanor, she called from the entryway. I came out of the kitchen. My apron was wet. My hands were red from scrubbing. Sharon, I said. And seeing her, I felt something inside me break. The tears started streaming out, and I couldn't stop them. Sharon came closer. She hugged me, and I collapsed in her arms like a child. What is going on here? She asked me. I haven't seen you in weeks. I've knocked several times and no one answered. I called you and you didn't pick up. I was worried. I couldn't speak. I just cried. Sharon led me to the kitchen. She sat me down. She sat across from me. Tell me everything, she said, and I told her. I told her about the party, about the humiliation, about the laundry room, about Chloe's parents, about Dan asking me to leave. I told her everything while the tears wouldn't stop falling. Sharon listened to me in silence. Her face grew harder with every word. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. Eleanor, this is not right, she said. This is abuse. Don't you see it? They are mistreating you in your own home. They are making you believe that you are the problem. But you're not. They are the problem. And you have to do something before they take everything from you. Before they take away even your dignity. What can I do? I asked her. He's my son, Sharon. He's all I have. No. Eleanor, you have more than that. You have this house. You have your life. You have your worth. And if your son can't see that, then he's the one who lost you. Not the other way around. You have to defend yourself. You have to set boundaries. Because if you don't, they are going to keep walking all over you until there's nothing left of you. Her words stuck in my chest. She was right. I knew it. But it was easier said than done. I don't know if I can, I said. Yes, you can. I know you, Eleanor. You raised a son alone. You built this house with your own hands. You survived things that would have broken anyone. You have strength. You've just forgotten it. But it's still there, inside, waiting for you to bring it out. I just looked at her. Her eyes were full of conviction, of certainty, as if she could see something in me that I no longer saw. What if I end up alone? I asked. What if Dan leaves and never comes back? Then you end up alone, Sharon said. But alone with dignity is better than accompanied by humiliation. Trust me, I know. I'm alone. And there are hard days. There are days when I miss having someone, but I have never been treated like trash in my own house. I have never been made to feel worthless, and that, Eleanor, that is priceless. That night I couldn't sleep. Sharon's words spun in my head, over and over. She was right. I knew it. But the fear was stronger. The fear of being alone. The fear of losing Dan. The fear of having no one. But there was another fear. A deeper fear. The fear of continuing to live like this. Like a ghost. Like someone who only exists to serve. To please. To disappear. What kind of life was that? The next morning, I woke up different. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew something had to change. I made breakfast like always. But when Dan and Chloe came down, I didn't serve them. I put the food on the table and I sat down. For the first time in months, I sat at the table with them. Chloe looked at me, surprised. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm going to eat breakfast," I said. "But you already ate, didn't you? You always eat before us. Today I want to eat breakfast with you." There was an uncomfortable silence. Dan looked at his plate. Chloe frowned. But they didn't say anything. They served themselves. They ate. Me too. It was a silent breakfast. Tense. But I was there. At my table. In my house. After breakfast, Chloe left for work. Dan too. I was left alone. I looked at the house. I looked at everything they had taken from me. And something inside me began to wake up. I went to the garage. I looked for my rocking chair, the one Robert had given me. It was covered in dust. I cleaned it. I carried it to the living room. I put it where it had always been. Chloe could have her new sofa, but my rocking chair was going to be there too. I went to my old room. The one Chloe's parents had used. I knocked on the door. Mrs. Helen opened it. "Yes?" she said. "Excuse me, ma'am. Your 2 weeks are up. I need you to vacate the room. Today." She just stared at me, surprised. "What did you say?" "This is my room. You came for 2 weeks. They're over. I need you to leave or find another place to sleep. But I am moving back into my room today. And does Chloe know about this? This is my house. I don't need her permission." I closed the door. I walked away. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. But I had done it. I had set a boundary. When Chloe got home that afternoon, she was furious. "How dare you?" she yelled at me. "How dare you kick my parents out?" I didn't kick them out. I asked for my room back. They can stay. But not in my room. "This isn't just your house, Eleanor. We all live here." I just looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't look away. "You're right," I said. "We all live here, but this house is mine. And I also have the right to have my own space, to sit at my own table, to exist. And if you don't like it, you know where the door is." Chloe was speechless. Dan, too. Neither of them expected that from me. That night I slept in my room, in my bed, for the first time in weeks. And even though the silence in the house was tense, even though I knew this was just the beginning, I felt different. I felt alive. The days that followed were a quiet war. Chloe wouldn't speak to me. When I entered a room, she left. Dan tried to mediate, but I didn't listen to him anymore. I had found something I thought was lost. My voice, my dignity, and I wasn't going to let it go again. Chloe's parents left the next day. They left angry, without saying goodbye, muttering things I couldn't quite hear, and I didn't care. Chloe started cooking her own meals, washing her own clothes, as if she wanted to prove she didn't need me, and I let her. I cooked for myself. I cleaned only my things. I took care of my space. The house felt divided, but at least I wasn't invisible anymore. One night, 2 weeks later, Chloe came up with an idea. "Eleanor, we need to talk," she said. Dan was by her side. They both looked serious. "We've thought a lot about this situation, about how to make it work for everyone, and we think the best solution is for you to sell the house, that we sell it. And with that money, everyone buys something. You buy yourself a small apartment, we buy ours, and everyone is happy. That way there are no more conflicts, no more problems. Everyone in their own space." I just stared at her. Then I looked at Dan, waiting for him to say something, to say it was crazy, that this was my house and no one was going to sell it. But Dan just nodded. "It makes sense, Mom," he said. "Think about it. With what this house is worth, you'd have enough to buy yourself something nice, something just for you, and we could also start over, with no debt, no pressure. It would be the best for everyone. A win-win solution." "No," I said. The word came out firm, clear, without a doubt. "Mom, be reasonable. You can't be this selfish. Think about us, too, about our future. We want to start a family, have kids, and we can't do it here. Not like this. We need our own space. And you do too. This would be good for you. For everyone. You just have to sign the papers, and that's it. Everything is fixed. Everyone is happy. This house is not for sale," I said. "It's the only thing I have left of your father. It's the only thing I built with my own hands. I am not going to sell it. Ever." Chloe took a step forward. Her face was red with rage. "You know what, Eleanor? I am sick of you. I am sick of your drama, of your victim complex, of your attitude. You reach your 60s, and you think the world owes you something. That we all have to be thanking you for what you did 30 years ago. Well, no. That's over. That time is gone. Now we are the ones who work, the ones who pay the bills, the ones who keep this house standing. And you just get in the way. You just take up space. You just make our lives impossible with your bitter old woman whims." Every word was a slap. But they didn't hurt me like before, because now I saw them clearly. I saw the truth behind each one. "If I bother you so much," I said calmly, "you know where the door is. No one forced you to stay. No one is holding you here. This is my house. And if you don't like it, you can leave." "But I'm staying." Chloe laughed, a bitter laugh. "Your house? Please. This house isn't yours anymore. You don't pay for anything. We pay for everything. The electricity, the water, the gas, the internet, everything. You just live here for free. So don't come acting like the owner when you haven't contributed anything in months. If it weren't for us, they would have cut off all your utilities by now. You'd be living in the dark, without water, without anything. So a little gratitude wouldn't kill you." Dan said nothing. He just stared at the floor, letting his wife destroy me with words, without defending me, without protecting me. "Tomorrow," Chloe continued, "I'm bringing a real estate agent. He's going to appraise the house. He's going to see what it's worth. And we are going to start the sale process, with or without your permission. Because legally, if Dan lives here, he has rights too. So either you cooperate and this gets done the easy way, or we do it the hard way. But it's going to get done, one way or another." She turned and left. Dan looked at me for a moment. There was something in his eyes, something like guilt, but it wasn't enough to make him speak, to make him defend me. He followed her. I was left alone in the living room, surrounded by silence, surrounded by the walls I had painted myself, the floor I had cleaned 1,000 times myself, the memories of a lifetime. I wasn't going to let them take this from me. I wasn't going to allow it. That night I called Sharon. I told her everything. She was there in 20 minutes. "Eleanor, you have to act now," she said, "before it's too late. You need to talk to a lawyer. You need to protect your house. This house is in your name, right?" "Yes, only in my name." "Then they can't sell it without your consent. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter that they pay the utilities. The house is yours. But you have to be sure. You have to get everything in order before they try something. There are people who forge signatures, people who do horrible things for money, and from what you're telling me, Chloe is capable of anything." She was right. I knew it. The next day, while Chloe and Dan were at work, I went out. I went downtown. I found a lawyer. I told him my situation. He explained my rights. He told me the house was mine, that no one could force me to sell it, that no one could kick me out. He helped me prepare documents to protect my property. When I got home, I felt different, stronger, more secure. That afternoon, just as she had said, Chloe arrived with a man, a real estate agent. He had his briefcase. his professional smile. "Eleanor, this is Mr. Gaines," Chloe said. "He's going to look at the house. He's going to take pictures. He's going to do the appraisal." "No," I said. "He's not going to do any of that. Because this house is not for sale." "Mom, don't start," Dan said. "We already talked about this, and I already said no. This house is mine. Mine alone. And it is not for sale. Mr. Gaines, I appreciate you coming, but it won't be necessary. You can leave." The man looked at Chloe, then at Dan, confused. "The house isn't in your names?" he asked. "It's in her name," Chloe admitted through gritted teeth. "But she's in agreement. It's just that she gets a little confused sometimes. She's older. You know how it is." "I am not confused," I said firmly. "I am perfectly lucid, and I am telling you that this house is not for sale. Not now. Not ever. So you can leave." Mr. Gaines looked at his briefcase. He cleared his throat. "Well, if the owner doesn't agree, I can't do anything. I'm sorry. I can't work on a property without the owner's consent. It's illegal. So I think it's best if I go. You all need to resolve this among yourselves first." He left. Chloe was furious. Her eyes were shooting fire. "What did you do?" she asked me. "I protected what's mine. This isn't going to end here, Eleanor. I swear to you, you are going to regret this. You are going to see what it's like to be left alone, with no one, with nothing, because that's what's going to happen. Dan and I are going to leave, and you're going to be left here, alone, in this empty house, without family, without anyone to visit you, without anyone who loves you. Is that what you want? To die alone?" I looked her in the eyes. "Without fear, without doubt. If it means keeping my dignity," I said. "Then yes, I'd rather die alone." The weeks that followed were the most tense of my life. Dan and Chloe stopped speaking to me completely. They came in and out of the house as if I didn't exist. They ate out. They came home late. They locked themselves in their room. The house was full of people, but I had never felt so alone. But it was a different kind of loneliness. It wasn't the loneliness of feeling invisible. It was the loneliness of having chosen myself. And that, in some strange way, gave me peace. Sharon came to visit me every day. We drank coffee. We talked. She reminded me that I had done the right thing, that I had the right to defend what was mine. One night, 3 weeks after all this, I heard Dan and Chloe arguing in their room. The walls were thin. I could hear every word. "I can't take it anymore," Chloe was saying. "I can't live like this, with her here, looking at us, judging us, as if we're the bad guys. When all we've done is try to build a life. She's the one ruining everything with her stubbornness, with her selfishness. I need you to make a decision, Dan. It's her or me. Because I can't go on like this. I am not going to keep living in a house where I'm not welcome, where I'm treated like an intruder." "Chloe, she's my mother," Dan said. His voice sounded tired, defeated. "And I'm your wife. What am I to you? Don't I matter? Doesn't my happiness count? We've been living here for years. Years of putting up with it. Years of waiting for her to come to her senses. But she's not going to. She's going to keep clinging to this house until she dies. And in the meantime, what? We just stay here? Unable to live our lives? Unable to have kids because we don't have space? Unable to breathe because she's always there, controlling everything?" There was a long silence. "What do you want me to do?" Dan finally asked. "I want you to make a decision. To choose, her or me. Because I can't anymore. I'm leaving, Dan. With or without you. But I'm leaving. I already found an apartment. It's small, but it's ours. Or it will be mine if you decide to stay here with your mother. But I'm leaving. This week. And I need to know if you're coming with me or if you're staying." The silence that followed was worse than any words. The next day, Dan came to talk to me. It was Saturday morning. I was watering the plants in the garden. The same plants I had cared for years. The roses, the lemon tree, everything that had grown with me in this house. "Mom," he said. He looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes. It was clear he hadn't slept well. "Yes. Chloe and I are leaving. We found an apartment. We're moving out next weekend. I stopped watering. I just looked at him. Okay, I said. Okay? He asked, surprised, as if he expected me to beg him to stay, to cry, to plead. Yes. It's your decision, your life. If you think it's for the best, then it's okay. Dan ran his hand through his hair, that gesture he made when he was nervous. Mom, I don't want things to end like this between us. You're my mother. I love you. But Chloe is my wife, and I have to think about my marriage, about my future. I can't keep living here, not like this. I need to build my own life. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. I'll keep visiting you. I'll call you. It's not like I'm abandoning you. I just need my own space. That's all. I nodded. I knew it was a lie. I knew that once they left, the visits would become less and less frequent, the calls shorter, until one day they would stop coming altogether. I knew it. But I said nothing. It's okay, son, I said. I wish you the best. He came closer and hugged me. It was an awkward hug. Quick, as if he wanted to get it over with. I love you, Mom, he said. I love you too. He left. I went back to watering my plants. The tears were falling, but I didn't stop them. I let them fall onto the soil, onto the roots of the flowers I had cared for so much. The next week was chaos. Dan and Chloe packed all their things. Boxes and more boxes. They moved furniture out. The house looked empty, bare. The day they left, Chloe didn't say goodbye. She just got into the moving truck they had rented and left. Dan stayed at the door for a moment. Goodbye, Mom, he said. Goodbye, son. He left. I watched the truck drive down the street, until it disappeared around the corner. I stood at the door, looking at the empty street, listening to the silence. Then I closed the door. I turned around. I looked at my house. It was empty, but it was mine. I walked through the living room, through the kitchen, through the rooms. Everything was quiet, but it wasn't a sad silence. It was a clean silence, new. I sat in my rocking chair, the one Robert had given me, the one I had rescued from the garage. I rocked slowly, looking out the window. Sharon knocked on the door an hour later. She brought sweet bread and coffee. How are you? She asked me. Good, I said. And it was true. They left? Yes, they left. And how do you feel? I thought for a moment. How did I feel? Free, I said finally. I feel free. Sharon smiled. She hugged me. You did it, Eleanor. You got your house back. You got your life back. The days passed. Dan didn't call. He didn't come by. Nothing. I continued with my routine. But now it was different. I cooked what I wanted. I watched what I wanted on television. I sat where I wanted. I slept in my bed without worrying about making noise. The house was mine again. 1 month later, I got a call. It was Dan. Mom, I need to talk to you, he said. His voice sounded strained. What's wrong? Chloe is pregnant. We're going to have a baby. And, well, the apartment where we are is very expensive. The rent is sky high. And with the baby on the way, we need to save. So we were thinking. We thought that maybe we could come back. Just for a little while. Until the baby is born and we save a little more money. What do you say? I stayed quiet, looking out the window, looking at my garden, my house, my peace. No, I said. What? No, Dan, you can't come back. This is my house, my space, and I'm going to protect it. If you need help, find another solution. But not here. You are not going to come back into my life to destroy it again. Mom, it's your grandchild. Don't you care? Of course I care. But I care about myself too. And I learned that I can't help anyone if I'm broken myself. So, no. The answer is no. Dan was silent. I understand, he said finally. I understand. He hung up. And I stayed there, sitting in my rocking chair, in my house, in my life. I knew this was just the beginning, that the hardest part was yet to come. But I was ready. The months that followed were silent. Dan didn't call again. He didn't come to visit. Nothing. It was as if I had ceased to exist for him. And at first, it hurt. It hurt so much that there were nights I woke up crying, thinking of him, of the boy he had been, of all the promises he had made me when he was little. But over time, the pain got smaller, more manageable, because I understood something important. I had lost my son, but I had gotten myself back, and that was worth more than I ever imagined. Sharon kept visiting every day. We drank coffee in the kitchen. We talked about everything, about life, about memories, about plans. She helped me paint the kitchen. This time, I chose the color, a soft yellow, like it was before, like the one Robert had put up when we moved in. Little by little, the house felt like mine again. I reclaimed my rocking chair. I put my photos on the walls. I took out my mother's embroidered tablecloth and used it every Sunday. I planted new flowers in the garden. I cooked my favorite recipes. I watched my shows. I read my books. I lived. One afternoon, 6 months after Dan left, I heard a knock on the door. It was a timid sound. Unsure. I opened it. It was Dan. But he wasn't alone. He was holding a baby in his arms, a tiny little girl wrapped in a pink blanket. "Hi, Mom," he said. He looked tired, older. He had deep dark circles, and his clothes were wrinkled. "Hello, Dan. This is Eleanor, my daughter. I named her after you." I looked at the baby. She was beautiful. Her eyes were closed. She was sleeping peacefully in her father's arms. "She's precious," I said. "Can we come in?" he asked. "Just for a moment. I need to talk to you." I let him in. We sat in the living room, him with the baby in his arms, me in my rocking chair. "Chloe and I separated," he said bluntly. "She left 2 weeks ago. She said she couldn't take it anymore. That being a mother was too much. That she needed time for herself. That she wasn't ready. She left and left me alone with the baby. Well, just with me. And I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know how to take care of her. I don't know how to give her what she needs. I work all day. I don't have anyone to help me. And I thought that maybe you." He stopped. Tears started to fall down his cheeks. "I thought maybe you could help me. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know I was a bad son, that I treated you horribly, that I let Chloe humiliate you, that I didn't defend you when I should have. I know all of it, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom, but I need your help. This little girl needs her grandmother. And I need my mother." I looked at him, at my son, the man who had broken my heart, the man who had expelled me from my own life. Part of me wanted to say yes. I wanted to take that baby in my arms. I wanted to help. I wanted to be the grandmother, the mother, the one I had always been. But another part of me, the part that had learned to value herself, the part that had fought to get her dignity back, knew that I couldn't go back to that place. "Dan," I said slowly, "that baby is beautiful, and I love her, because she is my granddaughter, because she has my blood. But I can't do what you're asking. I can't go back to being the one who sacrifices, the one who forgets about herself for others. I learned something these past few months. I learned that I matter too, that my life is also valuable, and that I can't help anyone if I'm broken myself. Mom, please, just listen. I'm not saying I don't want to see my granddaughter. I'm not saying I don't want to be part of her life, but it has to be on my terms. With respect, with boundaries. You can visit me. You can bring her. I can watch her for a few hours if you need it, but I am not going to be your lifeline. I am not going to let you come back into my life to destroy it again. If you want me to be here, you have to respect my space, my house, my peace." Dan looked down. He nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "You're right. About everything. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." "I know," I said, "and I forgive you. Because you are my son, and because life is too short to hold grudges. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning, and I've learned. I've learned that I deserve respect, that I deserve love, that I deserve to exist." Dan stood up. He gave me a kiss on the forehead. "I'm going to do better, Mom. I promise. I hope so." He left, I stayed in my rocking chair, looking out the window, feeling something different in my chest. It wasn't pain, it wasn't sadness, it was peace. Days kept passing. Dan started to visit, once a week. He brought the baby. I held her. I played with her. I rocked her to sleep. But when they left, I went back to my routine, to my life, to my space. Sharon visited me. Other friends from the neighborhood, too. I started going out more, walking in the park, going to the market, living without fear. One night, sitting in my rocking chair, looking at the stars through the window, I thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the pain, the fight, the victory. And I understood something. I hadn't won because I had kicked someone out. I hadn't won because I had fought. I had won because I had chosen myself. Because I had learned that loving others doesn't mean you stop loving yourself. Because I had understood that taking care of others doesn't mean neglecting myself. Because I had discovered that my life, my house, my peace were worth just as much as anyone else's. I looked around. My house was silent, but it was a full silence, full of dignity, full of respect, full of self-love. I got up from the rocking chair. I went to the kitchen. I made myself a tea. I sat by the window. Outside, the moon was shining. The stars were twinkling. The night was calm. And so was I. For the first time in years, I felt that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. In my house. In my life. In my peace. I had gotten back everything they had taken from me. But above all, I had gotten myself back. And that was the only thing that really mattered.